Remember during the first Trump administration when we were so much younger and more naive? And people kept saying, any second now, Donald Trump is going to become presidential. Well, so far in the second Trump administration, it's not going very well. However, though, since tens of millions of Americans have decided to put him back in the Oval Office, we may have to redefine what presidential means. This is what Donald had to say about the fact that Jim Acosta, who's essentially pushed out of the egregious media network CNN for actually speaking truth to power, uh, Acosta left, decided to leave CNN. And this is what Donald has to say in a post. He referred to Acosta as the most dishonest person, reporters in journalistic history, a major sleazebag. This is now what it means to be presidential. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Nerd Avengers. Had enough? Yes, it's been a week. It has been a week, and I mean that in both senses of the phrase. Well, very glad you're all here because, despite the fact that it's been 4 days since we last met, a year's worth of things have happened. So Brian, Wash, Danielle, thank you for joining us. Where to start? First of all, I hope everybody is hydrated and rested. And if you don't already do it, start meditating because there's a lot going on. Let's start here. Going into effect today, January 28th at 5 p.m. I don't know why they're waiting. Donald has issued an order pausing federal assistance programs, right? So let's look at all the programs that are affected. Trillions of dollars to various sectors, healthcare research, education programs, all grants that have not yet been awarded on hold. Other orders include things like terminating the Green New Deal, pausing funds allocated to the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, hundreds of billions of dollars in federal spending, potentially affecting climate initiatives, prescription drug prices. It also targets financial assistance to foreign aid, NGOs, that's non-governmental organizations, DEI initiatives, gender-related priorities, Medicare and Social Security, we're told, wink, wink, will not be affected. Medicaid and other programs remain in question. So they are, I don't know. It's sort of like the, I think, Waj, it was you who once said that Democrats they don't take a pencil to a gunfight. They take a pencil eraser to a gunfight. This is the opposite of that. Like they're not taking a hatchet to the rule of law and social programs. They're taking a 3-foot chainsaw to all of those things. And
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. So I think, and we've talked about this before. We'll continue to talk about it, Waj, but how do we put this in the kind of context that, because obviously one of the goals here is to keep us so wrong-footed that we cannot keep up. So is it that we like laser focus on the things that are most salient? Like, because this is the breadth of this
Yeah.
is hard to wrap one's head around, basically.
So I think the framing that Rebecca Solnit, who's fantastic, she writes for The Guardian, gave is the correct framing. And I think we're a step behind. So what just happened with what you said, the pausing of federal funding? I want to quote her because I agree with it. Hi, that was a coup last night. In case no one mentioned that to you, the executive branch seized the power of the purse the Constitution gave to Congress, which is a pretty authoritarian, illegal consolidation of a power move. Time to go tell your rep, guys. Absolutely correct. In addition to that move, I want to remind folks that yesterday, Donald, for the second time it's been 7 days since he's been president. Oh my God. I feel like I'm on that planet in Interstellar where each minute is like an hour.
Watch, I'm 142 right now.
Yeah.
That's how long it feels.
I'm
like
the lady from Titanic. It's been 84 years. No, it's only been a week. But he said again, he joked yet again twice in 1 week that he'll run for a third and fourth time. He fired the.
He's not joking.
He's not joking. He fired the inspector generals. Kind of people forgot. His blanket EO to end birthright citizenship is completely illegal. So the framing of all of it, if we want to be honest with ourselves, and we should be honest with ourselves if we're looking at the past week, and in addition to pardoning the 1600 January 6th insurrectionists, including the leaders of militias such as Stuart Rhodes of the Oath Keepers and also Enrico Tario, and then praising them, is that this is the completion of the coup that almost worked 4 years ago. This is consolidation of all the power to Donald Trump in the executive branch, and every single Republican and every single corporate institution. I'm glad you led with the Acosta resignation. You gave a really good a sign off today too. If you've seen, it's 80 seconds long. Basically, we're all bending the knee, and this is what happened in Hungary. But Hungary was a little bit more functional and competent, and actually, helped. Hungary did something which, like, Republicans, if they followed, it would be a good model for them, Mary, because as Orban and Fidesz consolidated power, they also helped people. But Republicans are so cruel. They're like, nah, we're not going to help people. We're just going to help the billionaires. So I think we're going back to, I'm sorry to say this. I know you got a lot of folks who love Biden on the show. I'm critical. I praise when it's worth praising. I'm critical when it's worth criticizing. I was going to say the framing is we have an authoritarian leader literally taking control of the executive branch, empowered by the Supreme Court, Republicans, corporate media, and billionaires, and it's the 1% versus the rest of us. However, Democrats can't really say that anymore because they ran on that, and then Joe Biden said, welcome home. And then you have 48 Democrats saying, Lake and Riley Act. Yeah, sure, let's go detain immigrants who are just charged, not convicted, but charged. Yes, let's sit there and be bipartisan. So the messaging is all over the place, Mary, right? Because even if you say he's an authoritarian, a lot of people would say, yeah, but Biden said welcome home and Democrats are working with him. What? I don't understand. What I do think is going to happen, and I was thinking about this in the morning today, is sometimes things have to get far worse for it to get better. But if you wish that, sometimes things don't get better, Mary. Sometimes things just get far, far worse.
Exactly.
I feel with Americans, just knowing my peoples, we're very fickle. And, we want everything now. Uber Eats. We want Uber Eats economy, Uber Eats, success. But the price of eggs, they said yesterday, might be expensive forever. And that was before the bird flu hit the poultry, right? So I think it's going to be, all this is going to cause pain, folks. That's what I was thinking about. And I'll give it back to you. Pardon my rant. Anyone who says, I talked to a few people now. You remember those people we talked to last month? It might be good. It'll get better. I talked to a few of those folks, Mary. They're like, yeah. people, me and Daniel were talking about this yesterday. People's ego hasn't allowed them to confront, I think, the truth that is in their head, that this is like a big F up. He's going to F up. In no way, shape, or form, logically, is anything that he's done actually going to help Americans. So it's going to be 6-7 months before the pain really hits. And then I'm curious, Mary, will the majority, which is about 70%, wake up? or will we just bend the knee? And I don't know. That's a question I have. Honestly, I was thinking about this in the morning today. A question I have for all of you. Will we wake up, or will we just say this is the new normal? I don't know.
Yeah, well, Danielle, unfortunately, it is a truism of human psychology that people hate being wrong so much that they would rather not admit it than admit it and correct it, right? So to Waj's point, I think that a lot of people will just say, oh, well, it's still Biden's fault, or whatever they need to say to justify their own ignorance and failures. So we know, like Waj just said, this is everything that happened last week had two objectives. One was to harm the most vulnerable people among us, and the second one was to basically destroy the things that we used to think we could count on: the rule of law, the way the government functions, the economy, to the benefit of a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of people. So I just want to read something released by the acting budget director, Matthew Weiss, I think his name is. The use of federal resources to advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies is a waste of taxpayer dollars that does not improve the day-to-day lives of those we serve. Okay, well, all of that is just a lie, first of all. And secondly, again, the fact that Democrats cannot stand up to this stuff, I don't know if you all saw this, but there is an article in Semaphore that is about how rudderless the Democrats are right now. And when asked about, who's leading the charge against the insanity we're living through, thanks in part to the Democrats' inability to win a race against the most vile human in history, Dick Durbin, who's the minority whip, said, I can't answer that. Give us a little time. This is brand new. At which case, at which point I jumped off a cliff.
Brand new from when? Brand new from 9 years ago? Brand new
A week ago.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
so he's gonna act as if he had no idea this was coming. So
who could have known or prepared?
I have no idea. I mean, I guess people with seeing eyes and listening ears. So here's what
I do not have seeing eyes, Danielle. Just one for the record.
Here's what I will say. We are 8 days into this administration, and I'm going to offer like some really hard truths that I think that folks don't want to recognize. We are not going to have midterm elections. It is evident and fucking clear to anyone that has been paying attention for the last 9 years, anyone that took one glance at Project 2025, what they are doing. There has not been one pushback from one powerful Democrat, from one powerful industry in the last several weeks. Not a goddamn thing. From Biden's welcome home to the conciliatory design of folks sitting on the dais and just smiling and laughing and going along with what they perceive to be keeping with American norms and tradition, this place is being hollowed the fuck out, and it has only taken 8 days. When you decide to freeze all federal loans and grants, folks, this is not just like, oh, I wonder who that's going to affect. Think about everyone that you possibly know. Think about Head Start. Think about Section 8. Think about housing. Think about health. Think about wellness. So what separates America, what has separated America from other countries, is our social safety nets and the programs that we have instituted that our government runs to take care of the least fortunate among us. All of those are being halted. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, all scientific research is being halted in the midst of A week ago, we were told by the CDC that the bird flu is a confluence with RSV and the fucking coronavirus is all happening at the same times, and that put out warnings to 35 states, which, by the way, we've heard nothing since then because of what? Donald Trump ending all communications from the CDC and the WHO. Okay? So your food is not safe. Your water is not going to be safe. Your retirement is not safe. Your Social Security is not safe. The next thing that they're coming for is public education, which they'll say, oh, sorry, your check is in the mail. We're no longer going to be funding that as well. If folks need to recognize that the writing is on the fucking wall, turn off Netflix, stop scrolling on your fucking phones, and see what is happening right now. These people are coming for everything that they said that they would. There were no lies that were told on this campaign trail, right? Like, we know that Donald Trump is a liar, but do you know what they didn't lie about? Project 2025 and their affiliation, the 20,000 right-wing people that they have in place, that as they're firing folks at all of these agencies, that they are rolling in their sycophants and they're rolling in people that swore their pledge to Donald Trump. Reports are coming out right now that people are being asked, right? Who did you vote for? What is your, when did you have your MAGA revelation, right? And realize that Donald Trump is not only your daddy, but apparently the second coming of Jesus Christ. We are in it. And so I need folks to kind of get in it so that they can move through the fucking grief to figure out what the action is. Because if you're sitting around and you're waiting for some magical Democrat to come out of the woodwork with their fucking eraser, with their notepad, and write down for you all the ways in which Donald Trump is bad right now, like, you're going to be waiting for 87,000 years. Because they're not fit for the fucking job right now. And we are on our own.
Yeah, and we don't have 87,000 years. The planet is going to get rid of us well before then, if we keep going down this very, very dangerous path. And Brian, the damage is being done across the board. To Danielle's point, during the campaign, Donald lied about everything having to do with Democrats, right? Democrats did not talk about transgender rights or, whether to say Latino, Latina, or Latinx. All of that stuff was made up out of whole cloth by the Republicans. People who voted him bought into it, the whole woke mind virus insanity. But they did tell the truth about exactly what they were going to do. They were going to strip this country of parts and sell them off one by one to enrich themselves at the cost of everybody else. And again, it's sweeping. So I want to look at some of the military, some of the executive orders having to do with the military, because again, this is a rewiring and not just a restructuring. It's a rewiring and a total I can't say rebuilding because they're just destroying everything, right? Just destroying everything. Wait, hold on a second. Before I get to that, I want to play this clip from Schumer because I think it puts everything in context.
Last night, President Trump plunged the country into chaos without a shred of warning. The Trump administration announced a halt to virtually all federal funds across the country. In an instant, Donald Trump has shut off billions, perhaps trillions of dollars that directly support states, cities, towns, schools, hospitals, small businesses, and most of all, American families. This is a dagger at the heart of the average American family in red states, in blue states, in cities, in suburbs, in rural areas. It is just outrageous. Funds for things like disaster assistance, local law enforcement, rural hospitals, aid to the elderly, food for people in need, all are on the chopping block in this new administration. Why? They need tax cuts for the ultra-wealthy, and these cuts, they think, will fund them.
Okay, I kind of take issue with the without warning part of that. Seriously.
How do we all?
Yeah. As Danielle said, there is no Democrat up to the task. We're in a situation where Democrats continue to, especially in the Senate, continue to believe that they're part of this club and that, there's all collegiality is more important than saving American democracy. Just the idea that we need to worry that Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who's somebody I actually thought was a good guy before this, might vote to confirm one of the most dangerous, unhinged people in Bob Kennedy to lead Health and Human Services, because they've been friends since law school. Like, that's where we are right now. So
Wow.
I do want to look at some of what's happening vis-a-vis the military, Brian, and then have you talk about it. So they're eliminating all DEI programs. So removing these initiatives from the military. This directive also instructs the Pentagon to develop policies regarding transgender service members with the potential to ban their service in the future. Who could have seen that coming? Oh yeah, it happened already 8 years ago. They're reinstating unvaccinated service members who thought they had the right to spread a deadly virus to their fellow soldiers. Because remember, they were dismissed for refusing the COVID-19 vaccinations, and there are provisions for back pay.
Let me unpack this. The three of you have really left a lot on my table here. Let's see. I could try and do it as succinctly as possible.
You're playing cleanup today. Come on.
Don't forget the bird flu also. We need to introduce Beth there.
Yes.
So let's start with the one that I ran into a Russian comic the other night. And she said, I don't understand what all this concern is about waiting a couple of days to find out what the election results are going to be in the United States. In Russia, we know before we vote. So,
yeah, well, there you go.
So
and also in
Belarus.
Belarus.
Danielle has pointed out to something in the midterms. There'll be midterms. We just will know the results before they happen. They'll keep the appearance of democracy. They have destroyed the essence of democracy. And then let's talk about Donald Trump and the Democrats. I saw a meme from a cousin, God bless, she came from the same stock as I did, who said, the reason why Democrats are upset is because they finally have the father figure they need in the White House. Now, I had a good father. I don't need an abusive one. And Donald Trump, I don't need a father. The difference is between my mindset and others, and I know you all are on this page, these people work for us. They're our employees. Our taxes pay their salary. I don't need a father. I need someone responsive to we the people of the United States. The problem is the Democrats still have the idea that they can work together, and they do understand that that democracy is the art of half a loaf. They do understand the art of the deal. They do understand how to discuss things and legislate. They're better at that than the Republicans, who are great at running. And if you look at when they even own both houses in Congress, they really screw up trying to legislate. But the problem is these are not normal times. And the problem is that you have people who don't understand that still trying to make the old paradigm work. And it won't work as long as you are dealing with people whose sole function is to destroy, dismantle, dissuade, and this is delusional. At the end of the day, there's no other way around it. So when you're talking about the power, they seize the power of the purse from Congress. Waz, you're absolutely right. That is, but I've said two things and I'll maintain. We have two parties. One has no heart, one has no head. But more importantly, last August, when the Supreme Court made its decision to give a president unlimited immunity for official acts that only they can sanction, that was the end of democracy. And we are seeing that play out now in the first 100 days of Donald Trump. And everybody, when you say you feel like it's been a year, I know exactly where you're at. Every day in the White House for the first Donald Trump administration felt like a month. And I felt like I aged. I used to have hair. I aged 30 years in that first daggone administration. I don't know what's going to happen in this second administration, but I can guarantee you from being there, it's going to be fraught with more peril. And if you want to know how bad it is, I'll put it this way. Today, this is actually day 9, the 9th day, starting 2020. Yeah, day 9, 8 full days have passed. Day 9 of the Donald Trump administration is the first day that their 27-year-old press secretary will brief us in about an hour. And secondly, it is the first day that they have issued guidance. Guess who was issuing guidance for the White House for the last 9 days? The White House Correspondents Association, who has no business doing it. By the way, we do not work for Donald Trump, but we have co-opted ourselves and are showing fealty. You mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, Mary, my friend Jim. I liked his sign off, but I will say you don't bow to power. You don't bow to the tyrant. But more importantly, I'm going to steal from you, Waj. You kneecap him, and my feeling is you pop a bully in the nose, and we don't do it. And the fact is, we're trying so hard that our elected officials on the Democratic side are trying so hard to work with and maintain a paradigm that doesn't exist. And the Republicans are all in for Donald because they love the power, and they're scared to death of being primaried from even the farther right, as if you could possibly go farther right. So at the end of the day, what can you do? Hey guys, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, get involved. Don't back away. You've got to volunteer. You've got to run for office. You've got to donate. You've got to take the time, because democracy doesn't work without it.
And taking a page out of Waj's book, you have to support independent media.
Yeah, well,
Right.
I would love to.
Yeah,
amen. Yeah, and look, Dick Durbin. Well, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. You mentioned Dick Durbin at Capitol Hill. He's not the only one who is saying this is brand new. I have heard that in scrums on Capitol Hill all week, and the question I asked is, what's new about it? Did they change their suit? Is the weather different? What the hell's new?
It's so embarrassing. It is so embarrassing, Waj, that it makes me blush. That I literally. The idea that somebody would have so little self-awareness as to say that out loud in front of reporters, no less, is kind of.
And for the reporters just to nod, I'm sorry, but to sit there and just nod like,
Well,
I mean,
that we can expect. My question is, will the first White House briefing, will they translate it from the original North Korean? I don't know. But I think it's going to be quite something. So I wanted to shift gears and look at the totally anticipated horrors that are happening with deportation in this country. Let's take a look at this clip.
As part of a nationwide enforcement blitz that resulted in nearly 1,000 arrests on Sunday, President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, was on the ground in Chicago. In an interview aired yesterday, Homan said the priority was nabbing people with criminal records.
If you're in the country illegally, you're on the table, because it's not okay to violate laws of this country. You got to remember, every time you enter this country illegally, you violated a crime under Title 8, United States Code 1325. It's a crime.
Other federal agencies like the Drug Enforcement Administration and the FBI were involved in arrests with Immigration Customs Enforcement in states like California, Colorado, Texas, Arizona, and Georgia.
Waj, one of the things I most resented about the first Trump administration was that the fact that we were subjected to some of the worst people on the planet. It's exponentially worse this time around. Tom Homan is the worst thug I have ever encountered in my life. And he is basically, his brief is to make people's lives miserable with as much cruelty as possible. We've seen what's been happening with the treatment of undocumented workers and immigrants in the last 8 days, and I don't see it stopping. He denied that he's imposing an arrest quota on ICE officers, although I'm sure I'm sure they're having contests and they're probably like putting notches on their belt. He said, I don't have a number, as many as we can arrest and deport. The more money we have, the more we can do. Our tax dollars at work.
It's like Luca Brasi in human form. That's what I thought of when I saw him. And he also said that he's going to deport children who are citizens. So when they asked him on 60 Minutes, well, what about separating family? He goes, we're going to deport the children too. And so there are 11 million undocumented immigrants, 4 million of them who are minors. They do all the work that none of us, anyone who's watching right now, I'm sorry to say, all the 4 squares here, even if we were starving, we would not do these jobs because
we couldn't.
Yeah, not only could we not, but there's also something, and I want to be honest about this, that job is beneath me. I'm not going to go out to Bakersfield in the scorching sun during citrus harvest season, which is right now, and pick oranges. Not me. Well, guess what, folks? As a result of these raids, and apparently, like Mary said, there's a quota now, so they have to meet the quota system. And if you have to make a quota system and you're an ICE agent and you don't want to get fired and you want to get rewarded, you're going to aggressively pick up those people who come from Bajistan, which means on the Family Guy chart, they don't look like Mary or Brian. They look like me and Danielle, right? And that's what happened in New Jersey during a raid. They picked up a U.S. veteran, a citizen, who looked like trouble because he had my skin tone, and they're like, oops, our bad.
You look
Sorry,
pale to me.
detention overnight, right? So this is what's going to happen if you're against the immigrants. All right. Number one, in Bakersfield, which is in one of the top 3 counties that, does harvesting, right now, oranges are withering on the tree. Why? 75% of the workforce did not show up this week. Construction sites, they look like abandoned, dilapidated cities. Why? Because 75% of the workforce, wait for it, undocumented. They didn't show up. If you like food, guess who does all that work, like cooking your food? Undocumented. If you have elders and children, especially the wealthy, like Donald and others, guess who takes care of your children and your elderly, especially in New York and some other places? Undocumented. Guess who does the staff and cleans up Mar-a-Lago? Some of these folks, undocumented. So I just want people to tease this out for a second, okay? Because people, human beings are selfish. You're going to get rid of all these undocumented people, not to mention that that's illegal, ending birthright citizenship, getting rid of citizen children, cruel, inhumane, disgusting, vile, a complete travesty and affront to Jesus and his teachings, which is why the Catholic Church, by the way, is finally stepping in, because they realize, oh, wait, they're going after Christian refugees that we have dedicated our lives to helping, right? And so J.D. Vance, a Catholic, is now attacking the Catholic Church. I don't know if you caught that news. But what's going to happen is this. Undocumented immigrants do 3 things that Donald doesn't do. They pay their taxes. Give $100 billion in taxes. That money now gone from the federal government. So that money would probably go to the Tom Homan and the ICE agents. That's gone. Second thing that undocumented immigrants do, they help their local economy and the national economy. It's been studied for 30 years, right? Donald Trump went bankrupt 6 times and blew up the deficit. All right. Number 3, they commit fewer crimes than native-born Americans. Donald Trump is a convicted criminal. So all these jobs are gone. Number 1. All these people are going to lose their money. It's happening right now. Number 2, the undocumented immigrants get paid this minimum wage. They spend that money in the local economy. Local economy sucks, right? Now you have a shortage in agriculture, Mary. You have a shortage in construction, in services. Who's going to do these jobs? And then finally, the last thing I'll say is Elon is obsessed with the birth rate, but he wants the white folks to have babies. Guess who's keeping the birth rate like just hovering at 1.6 and 1.7? For those who know, the number is 2.1 is the total fertility rate, which total TFR means women have to have 2.1 kids just to keep the birth rate stable. In the EU and America, it's dipped to 1.7. The reason why it hasn't dipped to 1.2 or 1.3, anyone want to take a guess? Immigrants. So now, after you kick out the immigrants, now all these rural areas where no one does the work are going to be completely barren, and literally white supremacy has helped destroy itself.
They are, by the way,
can't happen soon enough, though.
It is. If you go through, and I've driven across this country like 4 or 5 times during the campaign, there are huge swaths of the United States that are completely empty. It looks like, if you read Isaac Asimov in Caves of Steel, they're
of
automated
course we
farms.
did. What a ridiculous
It's automated
thing to
farming
say.
while people and all those small cities are evaporating. And thus you have the problems with drug addiction, particularly meth and among whites. And by God, it's all because of, as Waj pointed out, it's already happening. If you look,
Yeah,
it's
it's
there.
already happening. And I need to add a fourth thing to your list, Waj. 4 things immigrants do that Donald Trump has never done. Honest work. Honest work. Actually, he doesn't really do any work, but
hard work. I'm so glad you said that, Mary. Hard work.
And I want, I wish I had this clip, but I didn't think about it until just now. If you look on the internet, there are videos of migrant workers doing, farm labor. And remember, this is work that is referred to as unskilled labor. Look at how unbelievably skilled these people are, how quickly they are able to do their, and so one, just look at the breathtaking skill of them. 2, remember that they're probably working as fast as they are because they get paid by how much they pick, right? So it is backbreaking labor, and it is so insulting. It's like calling Social Security an entitlement program. No, this is like the skill required. And like what Waj said, Americans aren't doing it. Like if Americans were doing it, the oranges wouldn't be rotting on the trees because there would be Americans stepping up to pick the oranges. Nope. We're not doing that. So anyway, we're also in the context of the horrors happening with deportation. They're focusing allegedly, because I think it's just going to be like casting a wide net. I really don't think they're going to be checking too hard, but allegedly they're prioritizing the deportation of immigrants who are under investigation for criminal activities, which by the way is not the same thing as having actually committed a crime, because crime rate among immigrants and undocumented workers is like, I think the lowest of all groups, for maybe obvious reasons. Investigators from agencies like the FBI, the ATF, and the DAA are all encouraged to deport undocumented individuals if an indictment for non-immigration related crimes is not expected anytime soon. And before they even got into office, Donald's transition team was inquiring about the involvement of non-U.S. citizens in law enforcement investigations. So, Danielle, this is a long time in the works. And again, nobody has a right to be shocked or surprised. And yet it's just unfolding seamlessly because they wrote a fucking book about it, for God's sakes.
They wrote a book about it. They might as well. Maybe they should have turned it into a fucking Netflix series, and then maybe people would have paid attention to it and would have been talking about it. Maybe Democrats should have taken the Project 2025 when they saw it and said, how do we get people to pay attention to how dangerous and how serious this is and how quickly it will be operationalized? How do we communicate in a way that actually wakes people up, not just in fear, but in a grave understanding of their own personal power that is going to be taken away? And I want folks to understand, as all of these conversations right now are going around about immigrants, and you're going to see, horrible videos and kids being dragged out of schools and people being dragged out of churches and all of these things, they go for the low hanging fruit first. The people that you can dismiss, the people that you can shrug off, which are the immigrants and the migrants. It doesn't matter if you list off all of the jobs that they do that nobody wants to do. It won't be affected until your avocado toast costs $28 fucking dollars, right? And the rich who are going to be getting the tax breaks will be able to afford that. So they don't give a fuck. Until their toilets are not cleaned, until their cafeterias are empty of workers, until, there's no one to nanny their children, then all of a sudden there will be a problem. But you have to understand here that they have targeted exactly who they're going to go after, and they're going to tick off the list. So it'll be the brown people that they don't want in the country. Then it's going to be the trans people, and people won't care about them because of the way that we've talked about trans people and the way that we have marginalized trans folks. And then it will move up the LGBTQ ladder. Then it will move up the ladder to Black people and to who you've decided is a danger, who you've decided is a terrorist.
Muslims, Jews,
What
Catholics.
What organization is now going to be
Reporters.
labeled a terrorist organization? What media people are now going to be silenced? And you're going to see like the march of people quitting or being fired, and then everyone is going to turn around, and at that time it's going to be already too late, because everybody around you will have been gone and picked up. And I said this earlier today on Blue Sky. I said, you know what? The problem is Americans are too fucking comfortable. That's the problem right now. Earlier today, I saw pictures of folks in Germany out in the streets doing mass protests. Why? Because the AfD, the Nazi party that Elon Musk is backing, is really close to taking power. And so the people are showing their fucking numbers right now and are out in the streets. Why? Because they've seen this fucking play before. They've lived through it before. And so I just like Americans are still in this place. They're shocked into apathy right now, where they believe that these things that we are hearing and seeing are not really happening, that it's not going to really affect them, that somehow magically we'll be really able to hold on for the next 2 years, the next 4 years. And then all of a sudden, magically, this mythical Democrat will come up and sweep in and make things okay. You have to understand that the rule of law no longer exists. The things that we keep saying are illegal. It's illegal to fire the 18 inspectors generals. It's illegal to do this. It's illegal. They don't give a fuck. And like, who's pushing back on them? Who is saying no? Not one person. How was Marco Rubio approved 99-0? How was there not one Democrat that said that motherfucker wasn't qualified for the job? How are we moving along?
I think that's actually his middle name, motherfucker, but I could be wrong.
I mean, MMR. But I can tell you that I have sat and I think about little Danielle in elementary school asking her teachers, I don't understand how slavery happened. I don't understand how the Holocaust happened. Where were the people who were upset, who were angry, who recognized that these things were wrong? And the answers that those teachers told me was, well, you know, Danielle, those were the times. And so I wonder when it comes 30, 40, 50 years down the road, when America is fully in rubble and we're trying to rebuild, or whoever is left is trying to rebuild, and there'll be another little girl that will say, where were the people? Like, why didn't anyone do anything? And the response will be, well, those were the times. And that will just be what the fuck it is.
History repeats itself all the time, unfortunately.
Yeah, but
Good rant,
because
Daniel,
we
good
don't
rant.
we don't learn, and I mean the normalization of this man by the media, by the Republican Party, by Democrats
By
is
the voters, yeah.
well, no, the normalization of him to the voters
Yep.
is also, you know, one of the things that we're dealing with, the fallout of that as well. And Danielle, I don't know how I'm going to go about doing this. I'm going to frame your what you just said somehow. Seriously, because putting somebody like him back in power is also normalizing, right? So now he is he's asking a judge in Delaware for a 4-year delay or total dismissal of a civil suit that's been filed in state court by 2 co-founders of his failing social media company, claiming that as president, he should be shielded from defending private civil litigation until he leaves office. There are other so Donald's lawyers are arguing that he's facing an unprecedented number of lawsuits. Well, maybe stop being a fucking criminal all the time, and
Yeah.
you won't you won't face an unprecedented number of lawsuits. So it's the media lawsuit. It's he's looking for broader immunity. I don't know. I think that the corrupt illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court has that covered. So my question to you, Brian, is: does that mean that he can't sue me anymore? Okay, that's not really my question, but
That's a good question. No.
yeah, but I mean, we are seriously in. If the president does it, it can't be illegal territory right now.
Well, if you
On
think
steroids.
if you think that any of this rings true, let me remind you, Donald Trump says one of the reasons why he's going after immigrants is because of the dangerous criminals that would be released on the streets. Donnie, you released 1,500 of them. You don't care about the dangerous criminals as long as they're dangerous for you. And by the way, to Mary's point earlier, the immigrant community is one of the least dangerous out there. They're just trying to make a living. So if you think that, and Danielle, if you think that we are too comfortable in the United States, I'm going to quote Pink Floyd and David Gilmour. It's not that we're comfortable. It's that we're comfortably numb. The bottom line to the United States is we have too many people who do not, and this goes back to George Carlin. Think of how stupid the average person is and realize half of them are stupider than that. And the people who run this country don't want you educated. You talk about taking away the education they already have.
Yeah.
I'm seeing my grandson go to school out in California where public schools are just merely small detention facilities that are in fact roped off and fenced off, and no education goes on. It's simply rote memorization and changing their potty and letting them go home at the end of 5 hours. Real education in this country is also indoctrination. It's Christian schools, it's the charter schools, and you have to pay for it. Real education no longer exists. Critical thinking is not taught. And this country is done if we don't improve that. And if you want, I could rant on that for an hour as I look into the eyes of my 5-year-old grandson and my 2-month-old granddaughter, who I'm still convinced is going to lead the United States to a new age, because I look at her eyes and I know she'll be president one of these days and she's going to kick ass. But
can she start tomorrow is my question.
She already has more common sense than most politicians. But Mary, the point that you make with all this is so important to remember. And that is, as you look at the Democrats, there's no one doing any pushback. Not Jamie Raskin, not Adam Schiff, not Gavin Newsom, not Gavin Newsom, not no one. The fact of the matter is they're all, again, I go back to, they're all trying to get along, go along and get along. And folks, I go back to Pogo. We have met the enemy. He is us if you don't get involved.
And,
Sorry for the rant.
You guys really need to stop apologizing for the rent.
I apologize. Get out there.
I apologize for apologizing for the rent. Okay, seriously. We're also seeing the Orwellian ways in which Donald's lies kind of keep upending truth. He's got this thing about this bizarre obsession with water flow, water pressure, shower heads. I don't know. So basically he said that the US military entered California and turned on the water supply because that was the only thing preventing California from fighting the wildfires, right? They just forgot to turn on the tap. Because that's a thing. I don't know if you guys know this, but in Northern California, at the very top of California, there's a huge faucet, and if you turn it on, that's all that it waters the crops and it puts out the fires and it protects the smelt. Anyway, so they turned on the water supply, but this will shock you. The California Department of Water Resources refuted that, clarifying instead that federal water pumps were merely offline for routine maintenance and had resumed operation. So it's just, again, this is literally something he said.
And he literally has no clue.
This is literally something he wrote. The United States military just entered the great state of California and under emergency powers turned on the water flowing abundantly from the Pacific Northwest and beyond. The days of putting a fake environmental argument over the people are over. Enjoy the water, California. Waj, if you are so far gone that you are willing to believe that, I'm not entirely sure what we can say at that point.
You know, I actually, now that I heard you say that, I do think he saw Mad Max Fury Road. And I think he got the scene stuck in his head where Immortan Joe, the tyrant, literally just turns on the water and the water cascades down the mountain. And all the peasants who are sick are like, thank you, Immortan Joe. And so that's probably the image he got stuck in his head. Because we know he gets things stuck in his head like windmills and Hannibal Lecter. But California is my home state. It has 40 million people. It's the 5th largest economy in the world. Over 100,000 people have been displaced, including, by the way, conservatives and Trump voters.
Yeah.
And as Brian said, you know, if you keep people dumb, if you keep people ignorant, if you keep people distracted, if you keep people sick, they'll work to death and they'll send all that money up to the 1%. And the 1% and Rupert Murdoch, instead of making people realize that they're the ones screwing them, they'll just give them a Haitian immigrant. They'll give them a Danielle. They'll give them a Waz. They'll give them a Muslim. They'll give them a Mary. And that's what you're seeing right now. The people are so distracted with, the woke virus, Costco, DEI. There's always something, right? It's like every week there's a new villain. I don't know if you all followed last night. I called it Captain America now is the villain because the actor Anthony Mackie, who's the first Black Captain America, said something which is like emblematic of Captain America's spirit, that he represents something more than America, right? He represents like virtue and honor and truth. That, folks, is the new boogeyman. That is what's trending on Twitter, and the right wing's running with it, that Disney has gone woke, and because they have a DI hire Anthony Mackie as a Black Captain America, he's no longer American. It's in the name. So this is what we have. And I agree with you, Mary. I've said this for about 9 years now. We have lost a third of this country for my lifetime. I've said it for 9 years. All the data shows it. About 30 to 35% of this country, no matter what happens, no matter what Donald does, no matter if he tells them to inject freaking bleach, no matter if he lies to them about COVID, no matter as they're dying of COVID, they still believe the big lie and the lies, and they're still beholden to their orange calf Donald. It's about 30 to 35% of Americans. And when this shit hits the fan, folks, and look, I know people want hope. I'll give you some hope as I end my rant. I know we're near the end mark. I also, if there's an asteroid coming in the sky, it is my job to tell you, look up. I cannot tell you don't look up just to make you feel better, right? So everything that Danielle has said, Brian has said, Mary has said, I have said, we've been saying for years. I said on social media years ago, Donald Trump will not leave peacefully. I was mocked. I was ridiculed. I said it again. I was mocked. I was ridiculed. Did he leave? I said he will not spend a day of his life in jail, even if Kamala Harris wins. I said that no matter what happens, they will get more and more right-wing, even more and more extreme, even after Donald loses in 2020. Maybe we know what we're talking about because we're students of history. We have our eyes open. We're telling you, he does not care about the rule of law. If Democrats say, that's not fair, that's illegal, you know what they're going to say? You lost. We won. Cry harder, libs, which is why I've always given them compliments. It's the only compliment I've ever given a Republican. Number one, they're a great opposition party. I agree with Brian. They suck at governing. Number two, when they get power, they flex. They bring a bazooka to a knife fight. And you're like, that's not fair. You were supposed to bring a knife. They're like, shut up. Cry harder, lib. What are you
Too bad.
Do? You little punk
because
ass
you know
bee.
why, Watch? Oh, because they won in a landslide and they have a mandate.
That's exactly it. So this is how we fight back. And my final word is it's going to get really bad for the next 4 to 8 years. I do not want to lie to you. You have to take care of your health, take care of yourself. It's a long walk. It's a marathon. Take care of your family. And as Danielle has said, Brian said it, Mary said it, echoing it, resistance begins at the home. Resistance begins locally. Locally, run for office. Locally, take care of your schools. Locally, reach out to other faith communities. Locally, take care of immigrants. Locally, take care of the kids. Build fortresses of resistance in your local community and then link up. This is how it's going to be for the next 4 to 8 years. We're in Empire Strikes Back territory. Luke has lost his hand. Han Solo is frozen in carbonite, but the story hasn't finished yet.
Yeah, and Princess Leia is wearing that awful outfit. So also I think we all need to start preparing to primary some Democrats because we need a team here. Danielle, I don't know if you know this, but we have a new segment that I just made up, and it's called This Week in Anticipatory Obedience. Because I don't know if you all heard this, but in response to Donald's inane and embarrassing executive action to rename a body of water he has no right to rename, for those of you who didn't know, the Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America. Uh,
Is it
Google,
filled with trash and stupidity? Okay,
well,
let me
yeah,
stop.
well, we could go on, but so Google follows quote unquote official government sources for map naming. So
Jesus.
when the geographic names information system updates, Google will reflect the new names for US users. So think about that. Think about how special Donald is and how he needs to be treated. Google clarified that only US users will see the changes, because maybe somebody at Google has some sense to be a little bit ashamed of this. International users will see both names. So this is where we are. And I think, Danielle, part of we're almost at the end here, but the challenge that we continually face and that we have to sift through. I mean, the amount of information and changes and stuff we have to sift through is to figure out, what do we not give our attention to? Unless it's just to laugh because we need to laugh once in a while. But what do we need? What do we need to focus our attention on? What do we need to refuse to allow to get its claws sunk into us, like renaming the Gulf of Mexico, whatever. And that's the challenge. Like, what do we need to focus on? What do we need not to get bothered by? And how do we, without any power whatsoever, try to affect change?
So here's what I will say, and I'm going to be self-promotional for all of us right now. Is that one? What do we need to focus on? Folks need to focus on independent media and supporting independent media, like your network right here. If you have the resources and the ability to do so, do so, because you are seeing corporate mainstream media bend every fucking knee. In the beginning of this administration, CNN announced that they are firing 200 people. Editors, producers, like fact checkers, all of these people are gone, and other networks are going to be following suit. So soon you will not only will you not know what is happening with the bird flu outside of your door, or RSV or another virus or anything like that, you won't have any information whatsoever. So if you have the ability to support independent media, you should. And I will put myself in there as well. There are plenty of folks that are doing great work on YouTube and podcasts. And so do that and share everywhere and wildly. The other thing is, what can people do? We need to go back to focusing on our own communities and building our own communities, and stop waiting for somebody on somebody's white horse somewhere to save us, right? Like, it's not going to happen. And I know that people feel like, well, what can I do? And what should I do? And volunteer. Right? Like, volunteer in your community. There are going to be people that are going to be hungry. There are going to be school children that actually need real education and help in their classrooms. There are going to be churches that need support because they want to continue as sanctuaries, but they can't, right? Like, there are so many things. You want to start a gardening club, a conversation, a dinner, a something, right? Do something. As Michelle Obama said during the DNC, everyone has an opportunity to help out at this moment. I know that people are filled with fear and are worried. Transition that frenetic energy into action, into doing something. And if that means just sharing this video after it's posted, sharing the podcast after it's posted, going and subscribing to independent media, go and do that. But you need to take some type of action each and every single day, because I'm telling you that The goal is exhaustion. The goal is depletion of our energy and our spirit. And you have to find a way to hold on. If it's only been 9 days, as as Brian has said, like it feels like 90. And so just imagine what 6 months is going to feel like, what 4 years is going to feel like. We may be unrecognizable to ourselves if we're not taking care of ourselves and each other and our communities in this moment, knowing that the federal government has abandoned us. And not only are they abandoning us, they are weaponizing themselves against us. So all we have is each other.
This is indeed true. And just to echo Danielle's point, all we have is us. All we have is us. And only we can make sure that we are okay, individually and collectively. So we ran long, but I did want to, as always, thank our amazing moderators, because thanks to you, we have a real... Bye, Brian. I don't know what happened. We have a real vital community here. And this has become a place people come to for camaraderie and support. And, they just do an estimable job of keeping out the trolls, etc. And then, of course, we have the people who donate to us, our super stickers. I want to thank them. Thank you, Marjorie. That is so very generous of you. Thank you, William. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Paul, for being a supportive super sticker. Thank you, William. Yes, liberal Americans. I don't know, man. It's a challenge. Let's put it that way. Thank you so much, Andrew, for your donation, because we quoted George Carlin. I guess we need to start doing that more. Thank you, Dreamy Cat Studio. Thank you, Mariana. Dreamy Cat Studio again. We don't need more examples of his criminal hideousness. We need guidance for what to do, says Dreamy Cat Studio. In addition to the very, very generous donation, you're preaching to the choir. We know how horrible he is. What can we do? Please help. You're preaching to the choir. Well, okay. Danielle just told us, and we try really hard, in addition to covering everything, to give people actionable action steps and things to do. However, whether we're preaching to the choir or not, we need people to be informed, right? Because there's so much the entire federal government right now is an engine of disinformation. So even though you guys are part of the choir, it's going to seep in from other sources. So it would be malpractice for us not to talk about what is going on. And again, it's not to demoralize you or enervate you or whatever, make you depressed. It is always better to know, right? Because otherwise, as Danielle said earlier, and again, I didn't realize Brian had to leave, so he didn't get a last word today, but he will next time. If we don't pay attention, we will wake up and not recognize ourselves anymore. I talked about this yesterday, Danielle, and I'm sure you heard that one of the January 6th rioters who was released because he was pardoned was in an altercation with a police officer. He was armed. He was not following the instructions, and he was killed. And my initial reaction horrified me. So we need to be vigilant about who we are. We need to stay true to who we are. We need not to become them. We need not to celebrate horrors, even if they happen to people who are committing the horrors. So, something to keep in mind. Just a couple of other... thank you, Margaret. Thank you, William. Thank you, Serenity. Wakanda. Thank you. Thank you, Gina. Wow, a lot of you guys. Thank you, P9 New York. And thank you, Laura. Are you super stickers? Again, you people who donate, help us not just keep the lights on, but do the work. And we are never, ever going to stop doing the work for you and for us and for our country. So again, we are Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12 noon p.m. Eastern. And every night, Mary Trump Live is at 6 o'clock. We have daily videos at 4 p.m. Check out Danielle's excellent YouTube channel and all of her excellent content, including a brilliant series that is on Mary Trump Media that dropped, I think, starting Friday. 3 phenomenal game-changing interviews that you really, really need to check out. Subscribe to her channel, like and share all her videos as well. Same thing here. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And after you subscribe, click on the bell because then you will be alerted every time new videos drop. All right, we went long, but it was worth it. So thanks to Waj. Thank you, Brian. Thank you to Danielle. Thank you to Mercedes and the rest of the team. And to all of you watching on YouTube or on Twitter, we so very much appreciate your being here with us. And stay. I just dropped the ball on something. My apologies. No, I didn't. See, I'm so critical of myself. Anyway, thanks guys. It's been great. We'll see you Thursday. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind.